Hey everyone, it's your chance to catch up on the teaching and some below average worship from myself this week. I hope everyone is well. We're really excited. Over the next week, we will be restarting some of the sessions. Excited that we're going to be meeting back together in some way, shape or form. If you don't know anything about that, get in contact with myself. Hope everyone's safe and well. Look forward to seeing your faces. Hope this is a blessing to you guys and look forward to hearing from you soon. And see you in a bit.
Today we're thinking about how the early church invested in people and what that means for us. So last week, Lucas told us about the story of Peter, who was in prison and how he was miraculously rescued by the angel. Then in chapter 13, it goes on to explain that soon after that, Herod, who'd put Peter in prison, died because he failed to acknowledge Jesus as Lord. And then the story moves to look at two people called Paul and Barnabas. So who were these blokes? Well, Barnabas was also known as Joseph, but he was called Barnabas as like a nickname by the believers, and it means son of encouragement, which is a pretty cool nickname to have. And then there's Paul. His other name is Saul, and he was a Pharisee, a Jewish teacher, who thought that Jesus was a fake, that the church should be squashed, and he went about persecuting early believers until on the road to Damascus, Jesus met him. And hopefully you know that story, but if not, look it up, please. So after Paul met Jesus, he completely changed and he started teaching everybody that Jesus was the Son of God. But the apostles were a bit nervous about this massive change of heart, what's going on there. And in steps Barnabas. He's the one who introduced Paul, to the apostles, and the two of them started working together to teach people about Jesus. Later on, the church identifies that Paul and Barnabas were being called and should go to do church planting around in Cyprus and around the coast. It involved quite a bit of sailing, so it wasn't really a road trip, but off they went, and they took with them a young guy called John Mark. He's the guy who wrote Mark's Gospel. He gets to live with them. He sees how they respond to different situations. He sees miracles that they do. He hears the teaching. He sees there's a Roman proconsul who they preach to and who is interested in the gospel, but he's got a magician who keeps telling lies, and John Mark would have seen this guy become blind at Paul's word. But part way through this quite long journey, John Mark left them, and that must have been pretty hurting for Paul and Barnabas, that this guy who they've invested in decides it's not for him and sails off back to Jerusalem to be with his mum again. We don't know what happened, but we do know that a few chapters later, when they're back in Jerusalem and John Mark wants to join them again, this results in quite a sharp disagreement, a quarrel between Paul, and Barnabas. Barnabas isn't willing to give up on his cousin, John Mark. Paul isn't ready to take him again. He doesn't think that he's got enough perseverance. So, unfortunately, they have this disagreement, and we should always try to avoid disagreements. Thankfully, God uses it for good, because actually now they part company. Barnabas and John Mark go off to Cyprus, and they encourage the churches there. Paul goes with a guy called Silas, who's another Jewish leader from Jerusalem, who's a Christian, and they go off, and with them they take a guy called Luke. Well, Luke arrives and joins them partway through. But Paul and Silas invest in a young guy called Timothy from Lystra, and he is a guy who would have seen Paul being stoned when the last time Paul came to Lystra, when they first started the church. And now Timothy has grown in faith and Paul and Silas see in him that the Lord is going to use him, and they really invest in him. He comes with them on their journeys. With Luke too, they see all sorts of amazing things happening, churches being built, people coming to faith. And Timothy becomes one of the church leaders that Paul writes to in 1 and 2 Timothy. You can also read in the New Testament. So there's a lot of names there, probably some of which I've got wrong. What can we actually learn from this? Well, the early church took Jesus' call to go and make disciples really seriously, and so should we. So what does that mean? Well, firstly, I think it means investing our own lives to understanding more about who Jesus is and what he's done, and allowing the Holy Spirit to work in us. And then it's about allowing people to walk alongside us, about being open with our lives. It's about listening to God to see who that person might be. Might be a brother or sister, might be a cousin, might be a friend, might be somebody you've not even met yet. Whoever it is, I think there is so much excitement in investing in people and seeing them grow. I feel really privileged that I've been able to be involved in youth at SMR for ages. Thanks for having me. And so people like Amy Bilson, who were part of a small group that I was involved in quite a few years ago, and now becoming a vicar herself. How exciting is that? So I just encourage you, see the potential in other people and love them. Just keep loving people. Try to avoid the quarrel, hey? And actually, just picking that up, Paul and John Mark, they did get reconciled. And actually, in the second letter that Paul writes to Timothy, he says to Timothy, please, when you come and visit, bring John Mark with you, because he's really useful to me.
Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. No, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it. Don't deserve it, still you give yourself